And we've got a nice clean recording going. So there you go, Sunita.
Thank you so much, Alan. Welcome to our 67th session, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Here, Mike Ballstead and I will be sharing today, doing introductions and going throughout the slides. I will get through a certain amount and then I will pick up the PPP again. So thank you so much for joining us. This webinar is brought to you at no cost because of our support from the SBA and the State of California Governor's Office, GoBiz. The Small Business Development Center, SBDC, is celebrating 40 years of service. Our Northern California SBDC covers 36 counties, and we have centers that assist all these counties. We can assist with all aspects of your business, from entering business, startups to expanding, and this is all at no cost. With the SBDC Finance Center, we can assist you to get loan ready and provide you up-to-date information on disaster loans, which we will be doing today. So our Northern California Finance Center director is Scott Rogalski. Unfortunately, he's not here today. Myself, Sunita Maharaj, is the assistant director. There's Mike Ballstad, regional advisor, and new to our team is Kyle Roseman, who is a lending specialist. You will see him here often as well. So thank you again for joining us. You've been here before, you know that we have an agenda and also a disclaimer. We'll be going through the disclaimer today. We will also go over COVID and fire EIDL parameters, which we have done in the past. We are also going to go over the PPP applications, since there's 3, and required documents for forgiveness. That's where I'll pick it up again. Mike Ballstad would cover the COVID and fire EIDL parameters. Also, we have SBA updates for you today. Also, what's going to come up with webinars for the Finance Center and also for our region. We have some really exciting things coming up. And Case is here today, the Attorney Coalition. So I hope everyone has some great questions for them today regarding their COVID issues. We have the Q&A at last, but we will be answering questions throughout this whole presentation. Disclaimer, things are changing all the time. We've said this since day one, and it is still true as of today. This information was correct as of last night. If anything changed this morning, I apologize. I did not put that into the screen today or into the deck today. EIDL is still accepting applications. So if you are still on the fence in regards to applying or not, you may want to apply, get your name in the hat. We don't know when it's going to end at this point in time. So we do have nonprofits that can also apply, 3, 4, and 6. EIDL Advance is unfortunately closed out. Do not hesitate to apply for the EIDL. PPP you can no longer apply for, but we are going to go over what forgiveness looks like in the next couple of slides. And I am going to hand it off to Mike Ballstad, and he's going to go over COVID and fire EIDL parameters.
Mike, you're muted and
good morning. Good morning, everybody. I got a bit of a choppy. Hello, can you hear me?
We can, yes, you're good.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, the connection on my side was a little choppy. Good morning, everybody. Glad you're here today. And I'm Mike Ballstad, and we're going to go ahead and go over the parameters for we've had the COVID disaster loans available, since they approved that in March. And now we've got the fire disaster loans available in California as well. So for the EIDL, the rates are 3 3/4% for for-profit companies, 2.75% for nonprofits. And the difference with the fire-related loans is that for for-profit businesses, it's a 3% loan, so it's a little bit less. That's still 2.75 for nonprofits. For both loans, the term is for 30 years. For the EIDL the COVID-related loans, there is a deferral of 11 months, meaning your first payment's not due for 12 months, although interest is accruing during that time. On the fire loans, the deferral is for 6 months. For collateral on both, there's collateral required for all loans over $25,000. And on the COVID-related loans, they require a personal guarantee on loans of over $200,000. And on the fire side, it's personal guarantee for all owners that have more than 20% equity in the business. Neither of these loans are forgivable, but as compared to other business loans, it is a very low and favorable rate. So what you're allowed to spend the money on, it's all costs of goods sold, all operating expenses. What you can't do is pay off the principal balances of your debt. And you also can't make payments on any tax liens, but you can, again, pay interest on your normal debts of doing business. And that's the same on both. At the bottom, this is in bold. You cannot use this as a means to refinance your higher interest normal business debt, and you can't use it to pay off, again, you can't use it to pay off loans. Next, Sunita. Next slide, Sunita. Sorry.
That's okay. I think it should have come up to PPP EZ Application. So I will take it over from here.
Okay.
I created this last night just to go over what is the difference between the EZ and the simplified application and who can apply for either. SBA and I were talking last week, and Carrie with SBA, on how we can simplify this. This is the simplest that I can actually simplify it because there are so many caveats in regards to the EZ application. So before we had put that sole props, independent contractors, or self-employed individuals with no employees can complete, there are two other avenues that you can actually use this EZ app as well. So there are three things. If you could check any of those three boxes, then you can use this EZ app. So again, one, if you're a sole prop, independent contractor, or self-employed with no employees, you can complete the 3508 EZ form. These forms are all located at the treasury.gov. And I believe that Alan will be able to put some in the chat. And if not today, we can put it in the chat next week, but you can find these up-to-date documents at the Treasury Department. So it's treasury.gov. So if you don't fall into number one, you could choose. If you fall into number two, then you can use this app. I'm sorry, this application. Did not reduce annual salary or hourly wages of any employee by more than 25% during the covered period compared to the period between January 1st and March 31st, 2020. And did not reduce the number of employees or the average paid hours of employees between January 1st and the end of the covered period. There is a caveat to this. It says you can ignore reductions that arose from an inability to rehire individuals where employees were employees on February 15th. If the borrower was unable to hire similarly qualified employees for unfilled positions on or before December 31st. You can also ignore reductions in employee hours that the borrower offered to restore and the employee refused. These are questions that we've been asked consistently throughout the weeks on how, my person didn't come back to work. My employee did not come back to work. What do I do? So now it's saying that you have these caveats here. You can ignore these. Please keep documentation, because if you are asked for it, then you will have to provide it. But this is a way that you can use this application. Most of this application is you're certifying, you're just signing off on all of this information, and you're just putting in the very top is very simplified information at the very top of the app. So the third reason you would be able to use this application is almost the same as the second, but the additions is a little bit different. So did not reduce annual salary or hourly wages of any employee by more than 25% during the covered period. Employees between January 1st, 2020 and the end of the covered period. And BAR was unable to operate during the covered period at the same level of business activity as before February 15th, 2020, due to compliance requirements with all these different entities here. So requirements established or guidance issued between March 1st and December 31st by the Secretary of Health and Human Services, the Director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, related to the maintenance of standards of sanitation, social distancing, or any other work or customer service safety requirement related to COVID-19. You are able to use the 3508 EZ app. So let's go into the 3508 Simplified application. All entities can use this application if your loan amount was $50,000 or less. It does ask for you to certify, which is a signature, that use of funds were used for eligible purposes only. And it asks you how many employees at time of loan application when you first applied for PPP, and how many employees at the time of forgiveness. It does not ask you if they were full-time or part-time. It just asks for employees. So it is truly simplified. It is just one page. Now we're going to go into required documents for PPP. These are documents that you should be keeping, you should have kept since the beginning. Any payroll related costs, employee benefits, utilities, rent, mortgage interest. If you spent money on your PPP money on any of these, you should have documentation as such. Payroll related costs, everyone seems to have something a little bit different. There are certain documents that a lot of people have, but some people, they don't have as sophisticated POS systems or systems to keep this information. So I'm sure if you had it on an Excel sheet, you showed how much was paid, you had your payroll bank account showing the money went out, I'm sure that should be sufficient. But check with your lender, because they will be the ultimate person to let you know if that's going to be sufficient documentation or not. So for the regular application, the first application that came out back in, I believe, in June, you can find that at treasury.gov, and you will need to fill out the calculation form first, which is page 3, and then the Schedule A, page 4 application. I know this is a lot of information, and that's why we ask you, if you need assistance, one-on-one assistance, to give us a call, 833-ASKSBDC, and we can get you one-on-one counseling with an advisor. So this is going to finish up my PPP information, but as long as a borrower submits the loan forgiveness application within 10 months of the completion of your covered period, which most people have chosen 24 weeks, the borrower is not required to make any payments until the forgiveness is determined by SBA. But you need to submit an application by that time. So start looking into it. If you're not sure, give us a call, and SBA is going to talk about, if Carrie is here, she'll talk about it. If not, I can go over that as well, that they are accepting applications from lenders, and there are some lenders accepting applications. There are some lenders that are still not accepting applications yet, but it is up to the lender to do so. And the applications forms at this point in time say it expires on October 31st, which is that date has been extended to 12/31/2020. So it is okay to use that form. So just ignore the expiration date. This was, you know, like I said, things change constantly, and these documents were made to when they thought it was still going to be 8 weeks of the covered period. So we are going to go into SBA support. SBA will let us know all the updates that they have. They'll go over fire, I believe, and then also any webinars that they are putting on. If you need assistance with SBA disaster, this is their contact information. So the phone number is 800-659-2955. And if you need to email them, it's disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. If you need reconsideration of a loan, then you can email pdcrecons@sba.gov. And you can email servicing if you wanted to start paying on your EIDL loan, or if you had servicing questions, you can email elpasodlsc@sba.gov or 800-487-6019. The reason why I read all that off is because some people do join us via the phone or they're not looking at this. So that way I just like to give them this information as well. So I'll let SBA take it from here.
Okay, thank you, Sunita. We have David on the line as well, who's going to give us an update on some of our webinars that are going to be available, and then I'll cover the PPP and other EIDL information. David?
Yeah, I'm working with Janelle, so both her and I will be doing some of the updates. One that I have is for there's a podcast webinar going on tomorrow that the Women's Business Center is going to be presenting. So it's a really good webinar to help if you're in business or not, to learn how to get your information or how to do a podcast. So I'll put the link to that on the chat box. Janelle, do you have any updates too?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I'll go over the two webinars we have scheduled tomorrow. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., we're going to provide our overview on SBA programs. So that includes standard loan programs, federal contracting programs, and our resource partner services. And then additionally, tomorrow at 1 p.m., we're going to partner with SCORE, with the Capital Corridor chapter of SCORE, to discuss SBA resources and also startup success strategies. So we hope you can join us for one of those. Also, I just want to point you to our website, where we list all of our events, our joint partner, our resource partner events, and that's at sba.gov/CA/Sacramento. I'll go ahead and add that into the chat box as well. But we update that calendar regularly, and you can see dates and topics and links to register there. So it's a good consolidated site for training options. So thank you for the opportunity, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate those updates. So as Sunita mentioned, we are accepting those Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness applications. Our lenders have been taking them as well. It's, as she said, not mandatory to do it right now. You have that 10-month period to submit those after your term of use is over. In addition to that, we're continuing to accept EIDL applications. And as you know, there's millions of small businesses out there that are needing that assistance. So our processors are working hard to continue to process those loans for you. There's some other things going on at SBA that are coming up that I wanted to let you know about as well. The Women-Owned Small Business Women-Owned Disaster Contracting Program has had some changes that went into effect October 15th. We'll be doing some new webinars on those coming up here in November, so keep your eyes and ears tuned. You can sign up for our notices at the location that Janelle mentioned there on our website. And in addition to that, we will be publishing soon our district numbers for loan totals for 7A 504, EIDL, and Paycheck Protection in the Sacramento district. These will be at an aggregate level. I'm not exactly sure the day that we're going to have those, but they will be coming out for your information as well. That's all I have for right now, Sunita. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's see here. Alan is going to help us with upcoming webinars.
Yes. So we've reached the end pretty much for the October webinars. We have some bunch of stuff happening in November, which we're excited about. So if you're in the hospitality business, Holly Steele, who's a hospitality guru and just a fabulous trainer and presenter, part of our restaurant program, will be talking about how you can bring the service back into that you may well be known for if you're now just doing delivery or takeout. So how you can bring that back in there. And then also in November, this is probably, I'm not sure how relevant it will be to the folks here, because most of you are existing businesses, but we are starting up our new startup series. So we have a webinar on starting a new business, planning out your business, and that planning will be useful for folks who maybe need to be thinking about how they're going to reshape their business or pivot it. The planning tool we're going to take you through in that is going to be relevant to reworking a business. And then financing is really all about getting startup financing or expansion financing for a new or existing business, rather than recovery financing, which is what this is all about. So that's what we're doing at a region. At the center level, it's just ridiculous. We've got probably between now and the end of November, or between now and Thanksgiving, probably over 100 different events being done by local centers. So we've got, I'm just looking at that address right now, the SBDC events network calendar, and we've got sessions on our food businesses. We've got something on IP essentials. We've got Instagram for beginners, all being run by our network of 16 different centers and the various programs we have. So there's always stuff to watch. There's always stuff to learn that will be relevant for your business. Take a look on the SBDC events network calendar, and you'll see all of those events and a chance to sign up for them. Of course, they are all complimentary or free, as you've paid for them already, under the support of our wonderful partners at SBA and the state of California, and occasionally with some of the local centers, they have some additional local support. So thank you to all around bringing those things for free. Please take advantage, learn, keep moving. There's a chance to keep your businesses strong and growing.
Thank you, Alan. And Alan is also in the middle of creating a platform where you can access these webinars going forward. So once that is released to everyone, we will definitely let you know. I think it's a great library that you'll be able to get into and review and view it at your leisure.
Yeah, we have I gave a sneak peek internally yesterday, and people are so excited about it, but we're hoping to get that released within the next few days. So keep an eye out on your emails, and we'll obviously put a link to it in here when we talk about it next week.
Thank you, Alan. And also you can see us at ASKSBDC.com. If you want to watch any of these webinars from Wednesdays, we are there. So if you need help falling asleep or a little bit more information, you can watch our webinars.
For a good laugh, you can look at something that, you can go back to some our YouTube channel and look at some of the really early ones and see how things have changed. That could be really interesting for everybody.
I may do that. I may have to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alan.
Zanita, you have way too much to be doing.
Here we go. So coming up for Wednesdays, next week, we're going to do disaster loan updates. Sorry, I did have a presenter, but actually that ended up not being something that we could do on Wednesdays. And the fourth, Case will be back again, our attorney coalition. So thank you so much for Case and the attorney coalition for partnering with us every other Wednesday. We really appreciate everything that you do. So I am going to go into case force disclaimer, or actually Mike Balstad is going to take it from here and go over the case force disclaimer. Excellent. And introduce case force.
All right, let me get to that, because I was actually answering questions. Let's see, where'd my camera go? I apologize, I'm having technical difficulties over here.
That's okay, Mike. Why don't you get up to speed, and then I'll go over the case force disclaimer really quick.
Okay, sounds
okay.
Great.
Perfect. Case force disclaimer. The office hours are intended to be a resource for small businesses with fewer than 25 employees and nonprofits to learn information about various resources and legal issues relevant to the COVID-19 pandemic. So they can only answer questions at this point in time related to the COVID-19 pandemic. They are not intended to offer legal advice, and the leaders of the office hours are not able to represent office hour participants as their attorneys. This session is intended to address issues related to the pandemic, and panelists aren't able to comment on general or non-pandemic related issues. I'm having computer issues too. Here we go. I'll hand it over to Mike.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So with CaseForce, we also have some resources here for you. There's a link that will be put into the chat guide. There's a statewide small business resource guide. It's an online resource that helps you county by county find answers to many of the legal questions and maybe some local financial resources that are available to you on an up-to-date county by county basis. We're really grateful to UC Berkeley Law and the other contributors to this resource that keep it up to date for us. Today's attorneys, we've got Mark Dillman, who's an attorney at United Policyholders. So with any of your insurance related questions associated with pandemic issues with your policies. And Alfredo Silva is a corporate attorney at Morrison & Forster, who's joining us again. And my name is Mike Ballstead. And of course, we look forward to answering any of the questions you have today. I see that we've got one currently in the queue that's not been answered. And it actually was directed to Sunita, but actually I would want to open this up actually to one of our representatives from SBA that's on the line. It asks, what's the current thinking on the use of the 3508S form? Most, if not all banks, still haven't released this form. Is it better to wait for the form to be released or apply for forgiveness now? This question is based on a loan amount under $50,000, and the loan also qualifies for the use of the 3508 EZ.
Hi there, Mike. Thank you for directing that question to us. I think what the individual would want to do is, so it sounds like their particular institution is not accepting that form. Is that how you're reading that question?
Well, what I'm reading is it doesn't sound like they were necessarily declined. They didn't clarify whether they wouldn't accept it, but what they did say is that the banks haven't released their version of the form, whatever makes it the bank's form versus the SBA's form.
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah, Carrie and Mike, I've run into this as well. Speaking to lenders, they just haven't put it on their on their websites yet. So it's not that they're not going to accept it. They just don't have it up yet, but they were going to let people know as soon as it is up.
Right. And I think some of them have developed, oh, I'm sorry, Mike. Some of the lenders, some of the lenders have developed online forms. And so it sounds like maybe their software provider hasn't been able to create that form for them yet. That does not stop you from using the current form that SBA and the Treasury have available. And then unfortunately, if your lender is only accepting those via their platform, then you would need to wait until they make that form adjustment for their online acceptance of that. If they're willing to take the form that's already provided by SBA and or Treasury, then certainly use that with them. It sounds like an internal to a lender form platform kind of situation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carrie.
You're welcome.
Michelle, I hope that answers your question. If you have anything further that you need help with on this, please feel free to give us a call at 833-ASK-SBDC, and an advisor will be happy to go through any of these needs with you. Okay, now we have a question from Toya for any of our attorneys that might be able to answer it. It says, are there any protections against evictions from retail spaces for businesses that are still not able to operate at all or at a full capacity?
So I'll go ahead and answer that live a little bit. And the answer is I don't know. So I'm going to do some research and answer back in the Q&A once I look this up. But there are a lot of different rules that are applying depending on the county. And so we have a resource guide on the Berkeley website. Actually, the link is right there. And I think that guide goes into some detail about what the eviction protections are in the various counties. And so I'm going to go ahead and look that up and then type some answers in.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Fredo. We have a question for Mark, and it says, the question is about office fire damage. It says, let's see here. Office carpet damaged in fire after we had it cleaned, an insurance company for carpet cleaner who caused damage, saying it will only pay for the depreciated amount of carpet rather than actual cost to replace.
Sure, thank you. And again, thank you for having me on, everybody. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look at your policy, and you're going to want to see if that is a full replacement cost policy or an actual cash value policy. So request that full copy and take a look. Perhaps they're only going to pay you the depreciated amount until you actually go back and replace the carpet that you're speaking about. But if it is a full replacement cost policy, they should owe you the full amount if you go back and replace it. Again, check the language, check the declaration page to see if it's a replacement cost policy or an actual cash value policy, and that should give you the answer. I apologize, I can't give you something more concrete than to actually check yours, but they are very individualized in that sense.
So Mark, a quick question for you. She did indicate she was, it was the insurance company for the carpet cleaner. How would they go about looking into the language on that policy?
Oh, for the carpet cleaner. Here, let me take a look let me open that back up. So it's for that. So it's not their individual claim here. Let me see. Can I type them and ask them a follow-up question in the chat here to get a little bit more information?
Absolutely. They're in the question area, and you should be able to see them in the question area. And I believe you can, let's see if we can type.
Perfect. And I'll just
you should be able to type and send privately, and it's to Holly.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I've got one for SBA. It's asking, is the EIDL application the same one for both fire-related and COVID? And probably are there two separate portals for that?
There are two separate applications. The COVID, sorry, I wasn't sure if Carrie was there. Sorry, Carrie, you can take it.
Oh, thank you, Sunita. I apologize. I'm really, for some reason, not working this unmute button very good today. So yes, there are two separate portals on the SBA website, and they're very clear on the front page there for you regarding those fire declaration application requirements. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carrie.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we've got a question. My bank is waiting to accept forgiveness applications for PPP loans under $150,000, hoping that they will be automatically forgiven. Do you have any guidance if and when that will happen? So Carl, no real guidance on that. That's going to be something that's going to come out of any action in Congress. And so we don't have, until there's something in law, that's not really something we could even predict or project at this time. And sorry, I don't have a better answer for you on that. Okay. So at this point, we've answered all of the open questions in the queue. I've got a question for Mark. Is there in what's been going on, and I know there's been a lot of challenges to how the policy languages are working as it would relate to viruses and things of that nature. Have in some of the suits and things that have been happening, has there been any new kind of guidance or direction being given by the Department of Insurance or anything like that?
So thank you. So what we're seeing most recently is more of the same, unfortunately, and there's not clarity in regards to business interruption insurance and the language in policies that are giving folks trouble when trying to collect on a business interruption claim. Going back to March, the insurance companies were still putting out the narrative that there was not coverage for business interruption coverage, and we are still saying it is unknown, it is an uncertain landscape. As we move and as the first wave of cases are being litigated, mostly for two issues. One, the requirement for direct physical loss of or property to coverage, or requirement, excuse me, in policies. And then second, the language in virus exclusions. We are still seeing a split by state, a split by the type of virus exclusion, and even a split in policies that may or may not include a single word of in that coverage. In that coverage language. So as of today, I believe the split through the first round of litigation in the courts and the first opportunity for insurers to get rid of some of these cases in court is about a third of the cases have been allowed to move forward, and about 2/3 of them have been dismissed, many of which are going to be able to be their complaints amended. So the long answer is there's still a lot of uncertainty. So if you do have business interruption coverage, do not give up hope. Do not listen to the narrative that there is absolutely no coverage. I don't want to say that there is, but there's still uncertainty, and be sure to follow along with us at United Policyholders to see what direction we go in the next upcoming weeks and unfortunately, potentially months before there's a resolution.
And I recall the last time you were on your call, on our call here, and I thank you so much for your contribution, because there had been a lot of questions in the past around this. Would it be possible for you to put into the chat the link that you talked about last time where people could follow along with what you guys are doing?
Absolutely, absolutely. Here, I'll throw that in just a moment. So this right here that I'm throwing in is a link to our COVID loss recovery initiative, where again we have resources that kind of give different narratives to what's going on, different coverage analysis, and we are tracking lawsuits, complaints, orders from the courts, as well as posting our amicus briefs as we follow along.
Thank you. And while you're doing that, we did get one other question that was, it was from Holly. Again, it was a kind of a clarification on the last question I'd given you from her. It says, their insurance company says they are not at fault, but have offered money to replace the damaged carpet only.
I see. Okay. You know what? If you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and type an answer back privately.
Okay.
For that one as well. I have one more question. I apologize.
Excellent. On the legal front, is there anything that hasn't been asked that anybody, have there been any developments around, I don't know, any type of cases that there have been uncertainty about, that there's been any guidance that you think it's important for people to know?
Can I chime in again for just a moment here with just tips that we're seeing from the insurance side? I just want to reiterate again, request a full copy of your policy, because there's so much uncertainty. Request a full copy of your policy with all endorsements from your insurance company, your agent, your broker. Search for the terms business interruption and business income coverage if you haven't already, and look for that virus exclusion. Look for terms such as virus, pathogen, and contaminant. We've talked to a few folks already, and unfortunately, many small business policies do not have coverage for business interruption. We've talked to many folks who didn't realize they had it. So that's still the biggest thing that I would say. If you don't have a copy of your policy already, ask for one, ask for a searchable PDF. And if you can get one, search it to find what you have. A lot of law firms are doing free policy reviews. And just know that, again, there is uncertainty, and knowing what coverage you have in your policy may not only be important for your insurance claim, but also if there are if there's any government aid or any other sources of funding. Starting to collect government orders, a record or diary of your business shutdown or slowdown, or really any other information that you provide if you do or do not have an insurance claim could be helpful moving forward.
And in case anybody needs an actual attorney to work on specific matters, I'm going to put in the chat box some links to a few resources. One of them is Legal Services for Entrepreneurs. The other one, which is focused on the Bay Area. The other one is Start Small, Think Big, which is a little bit more California-wide. And they both are organizations that can help find pro bono legal counsel for folks that need that, you know, just because not everything we can answer on the call here. Or handle on a call. And then I'm also going to put out a handbook that we've prepared related to the fire disasters, because that also has some helpful information in it as well. So I'll put those links in. And I think Brett's doing it right now.
Thank you guys for that. Carrie, I'm wondering if from the SBA side, if there might be anything that's been a common issue that you've seen with people submitting applications where it's kind of a repeat thing that's being missed, or problems that are that are coming along with asking for reconsiderations or anything like that. You know, things that might be able to save people some time if so they don't make a similar mistake or you know, something in the process?
Thank you, Mike. That's a great question. And I think areas that we find where the small business person putting that application in, a couple areas where we see the most challenges, if they put their email in incorrectly, like by accident, they leave out a letter or a number or something like that, and then they're calling in, asking about the application. The challenge for them is then we will respond to the email, but they have to get someone at SBA to correct the email. So I think the key for the borrower is make sure, double, triple check your entries on your email as well as your bank account, because those are two things those are probably the two most frequent issues that come up in terms of communication with SBA and obtaining those funds. And then the other area that the small business needs to know on the reconsideration is it will be a while. It could be 2 to 3 weeks before you hear back on that request for reconsideration. And if they ask you for specific documents, make sure you send them everything at once, because what happens is if you send in a portion of the documents, they can't move forward. So even if it takes you a little longer to send it in, you're better off sending everything in, because what's going to happen is they're going to open that file up and they're going to say, oh, everything's not here. And they're going to ask you for what you missed. So it's important that you check everything for accuracy. And if you're requested to provide forms and documentation, provide everything at once that they've asked for. And I think those are a couple areas that could help that. But again, the system is very full, and you need to be patient with SBA in regard to those applications.
And following up on that, going to the recent addition of the effectively blanket forgiveness for loans of 50,000 and under, or at least very simplified. Is there any difference in what records need to be maintained or submitted to the banks to support those 50,000 or lower applications?
Well, thank you. That's a good question, Mike. If I were a small business person, I would have all the documentation prepared and put together that they're requesting. And I would make sure I hang on to that for a while, because in regard to the Paycheck Protection Program, there's a possibility that SBA may go back to that lender and review that file, review that request for forgiveness on the larger loans for sure. And possibly, and I don't know 100% for sure, but just keep everything that they ask you to provide on that. And that way you'll know for sure you've got it all set aside in one place. And if at some point down the road there's some type of audit, that you'll be prepared for that. So continue to keep those payroll documents. If there's a change in regard to some of in regard to some of the options where you can not necessarily meet each requirement in the 3508, then keep that as well. So any email communications with your employees or anything like that that you can document, make sure you have everything there ready if you need it.
Thank you. Let's see. I've got a question from Elaine. It says, and it was directed to Carrie. It says, is it true that you can bring employees back at the end of your covered period and be able to count them as 0.5 for FTE calculations under option 2?
That's a very good question. I haven't delved deeply into that. I would encourage you to reach out to our experts at the Small Business Development Finance Center and pass that over to Mike or Sunita to help you with that, where they can sit down and go through your individual situation on those.
We'd be glad to do that. And Elaine, that number is 833 ASK-SBDC.
And Elaine, there's 3 different applications. So I'm assuming you're asking about application 1, which is the full application. So I'd have to review the application in full again and review your documents to be able to answer that question. So sorry, it's a more difficult question, I'm sure you know, than it looks like.
Okay, and I'm not sure how we might want to see it. Carrie, I'm going to direct this to you. I have a feeling it really needs to go to an accountant, but you might have a general answer. They're asking, if the loan is not forgiven in 2020, should borrower write off the paid 2020 payroll expenses on their returns that they'll be filing by April of 2021, and then include the forgiven loan amount as income on 2021 returns when those are forgiven?
Thank you, Mike. You're correct. I can't answer that. That's more for a CPA to review that. I'm neither a CPA, accountant, any of those things, and I can't help with that. Sorry about that.
Excellent. So Joan, if you have a tax professional, you probably want to contact them and they can look into that for you.
Yeah, Joan, we don't have directive on that. So sorry, we can't answer that for you today.
We've answered all the open questions again. Oh, no one just came up. Hi, Maria. Okay, the question is, okay, so Maria, this one's not related to the COVID. I would just say call 833-ASK-SBDC, and we would be glad to help give you guidance on the 504 loans. All right, excellent. So we are currently at 11:23. We got about 7 minutes, and we'll hang out in case any other questions pop up. And here we have another one. What are the loan limits for idle fire? Carrie, would you happen to have that number?
Yes, let me, off the top of my head, and let me try and see if I can find, I just had that up earlier. For the property damages, there it's up to 2 million. And let's see, where is that? I should have this memorized, but I don't. Okay, see, give me a minute here and see if anyone has another question while I look for my answer to that question.
Okay. So while we're waiting and we have some space, please feel free to ask any other questions you might have, those burning questions that just haven't had the nerve to ask yet. We'd be glad to help if we can.
Okay, I've got that here for you now. So for the disaster assistance for homeowners, it's up to $200,000 to repair or replace real estate damaged and up to $40,000 to replace personal property. For renters, it's up to $40,000 to repair or replace personal property. For property damage for businesses, it's up to $2 million to repair or replace real estate, machinery and equipment, inventory, and other assets that were damaged or destroyed. And this is available to businesses of any size, private nonprofit organizations. For the economic injury loan for small businesses only, and most of the private nonprofits, for the fires with or without property loss, it's up to $2 million for working capital to help pay obligations until the normal operations can resume.
Excellent.
And this is in regard to counties of Butte, Lake, Lassen, Monterey, Napa, San Mateo, Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, Solano, Sonoma, Tulare, and Yolo, who were affected by the wildfires from August 14th through September 26th.
Excellent, thank you. And the questioner has a follow-up to that as well. They're asking what the eligible loss events are to qualify for that loan.
I don't understand that question. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess like a triggering event, like what are the requirements like that they had? Is it simply the economic damage? Is that the minimum requirement that they have particular economic damage due to the being in the fire related county?
No, it's either economic or property.
Okay.
So for the homeowners, their property damage is up to $200,000 to repair for their real estate or property, and then $40,000 for personal property. So that would be a total of $240,000. And then renters, it's up to $40,000 to repair or replace personal property. And then businesses up to $2 million to repair or replace real estate, machinery, equipment. And then economic injury disaster loans, so different than the COVID limit of $150,000, those will go up to $2 million.
And for those, is it just, what is the qualifying event for those on the business side? What are the minimum requirements as far as, do they have to have, have a certain percentage reduction in revenue or anything of that nature before they're?
Anything related to that. So for example, in the fires a couple years ago, we had small businesses that were, or the drought's a better example. We had small businesses that weren't necessarily directly affected by the drought. Let's say the farming operation was affected by the drought. They couldn't grow their crops. So someone with a trucking company who had relative work to that farmer that was directly affected, he was affected because he didn't have anything to haul. So it's that anything that you're affected by that disaster in any way for your business is eligible. So you would want to be able to show that you had a loss of revenue, or in the case of fire, a loss of damage to your property, whatever that is would be eligible as long as you can tie it back to that disaster and those counties where those disasters are declared. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, and I've got a question for either of the attorneys. It says, a business has a handshake agreement lease currently and will be leaving the location soon. What is their best course of action to limit liability with the landlord?
I'm not sure if you mean that you've got it currently as in you had a written lease, but then you're past the original term, and so you're sort of on a month-to-month or something like that. If so, you probably want to look at what the original lease says about, the termination and vacation of the lease, because it will probably have terms that extend to the, to this sort of handshake period. And so really it's going to depend on what that, agreement says. If you don't have any agreement at all, then, you may want to talk to a lawyer. And again, I think Brett from my team had sent some links in the chat box for Start Small, Think Big and LSC to try to get some, where you can maybe get some pro bono counsel, but you may want to get some advice on that. Generally in California, the law is fairly tenant friendly. So if there's no, and leases tend to operate to protect the landlords for the most part, even further than they already, so that may be helpful in your case, but you probably want to talk to a lawyer if there's literally not a single contract in place, and it may be helpful to establish some short, 2-page agreement about, your vacation of the premises and limiting liability that way.
Thank you so much for that, Fredo. And so with that, we're at 11:30 and we have answered everything that was in the queue. So we'd love, thank you everybody again for attending. We hope that you found this helpful and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.